Hey, what's up, everyone? I want to talk a little bit about some workflow uh, constructs and concepts that I've been working on trying to get models created. So this is some shader, some Unity shading study stuff I've been doing. This is an example of part of a Alamo, right? This is a shader that I built using the Amplify shader. And the goal was that we figured out that we really couldn't basically paint on all sides of all the Alamo with unique texture maps and create something that was going to be actually doable because the texture maps would get too large. It is a mobile product that we're building, so this is going to be a big problem. So I built this shader, which is allows me to do a couple things. I'll show you exactly what it does. One is that, obviously within Unity you can tile any kind of texture map you want. This is an example of a texture map being tiled directly onto that building. It looks pretty good. That's a photograph I took and created a tile texture using Pixplant. You can check my video on Pixplant on how to create tileable textures. But you can see it doesn't look like it's very seamy. You don't have a lot of seams. So once we've done that, then I also used Pixplant to create a bump map. And again, look on the side here, you'll see that there's some pretty good bumps in that texture. And then, so the part of the shader did was allowed me to create over here, I could add a noise map, and then I could add tiling and offsets and scaling to that noise map. So that would give me the ability to kind of break up that monotonous texture. And then what I did was I took the actual OBJ from SketchUp and I dropped it into 3D Code, and within a couple minutes I just kind of added a lot of cracks and things to the surface, right? Okay, so then I'm back and I take that and I go into Substance Designer and I use that to bake a normal map. And so the normal map that I bake in Substance Designer, then I bring back into here, and this is still the same low-res polygon, but you can start to see now that I've added this shading, and this normal map is really key, right? So I've been able to put cracks in it, and you're starting to see other kinds of detailing, like even those are sharp corners that look like they're distressed and broken up across the top and everything. So that's kind of cool. So this is the object UV normal map. So before we had a base normal map, which is the bump mapping, and now this is the object UV normal map that we put in, part of that shader. And now we have here in this one we have the we're adding an ambient occlusion map, which also we baked out inside of Substance Painter. So that ambient occlusion map now is giving us little more dark areas and things, making it a little more realistic. And then lastly, I added another dirt map that was a map ground dirt. I call ground dirt, and you can scale it and you can blend it. So you can change the color of it, like this little color right here. And this is a different color from this dirt. And you basically drag these sliders and it moves it up and down and it blends it across the sign. So that's really kind of here's the final view of the object. You can see it's a pretty interesting way of very inexpensively creating something quite photorealistic. So that being said, let's go back to SketchUp and talk about this cannon I'm building. So this is a component, and you can see that because this is, if you can tell, these are not perfectly straight. In fact, if I go, you can see that, turn off perspective, that this isn't straight. So because of that, I basically model this and then move it and then copy it over here. So as a component. So anything I edit over here gets edited over there. Same thing with this wheel. If you look at these wheels, you see they're not straight either. So I've modeled those. So now what I want to do is I'm going to take all of this, select all this, and I'm going to say File, Export, 3D Model, and let's take set it up as an OBJ and export, and we'll let it kind of crank away on that. And what I want to do is I need to create that texture map. So I'll go back into 3D Code and let's do new, and let's go to here and let's add that. So you can see now, here's my model. This is the model, but the problem is, if you can tell, see the wheel? it's all kind of gotten, it's all confused. And even further, to make matters even worse, is let me just, if I can click here, I've noticed I'm over here. I've got 92,000 vertices. If I hit this increased resolution, I've got 370, 1.4 million, 5 million. And if I turn it off, to import without voxelation and then hit apply, it's going to take some time. But once it's done, we have that done, and then we can hit the and you can start to see that, you know, it's not too bad. Actually works pretty good. We certainly have a lot of bad stuff going on in here, and I can explain why that is here in just a second. But for the most part, that's not a bad way of doing it. I just need to add more detail into this area. So let's go take a look at that real quick. So the detail that we're going to have to add in is over here. If we look at this object here, and let's turn off these, and let's look at that. So this object is nothing but a cube, and that's really our problem. So let's go to the front view of that. Oops, that's top view, side view, Shift Z. So that's our problem. So what we need to do is we really actually need to, believe it or not, we just need to add more resolution of this. So I'm going to use this tool called Subdivide Selection, and I can click on there, and I can do it once, and that'll probably be good enough. But for now, well, let's just do that, and then again we'll just select everything, and we will, you know, turn this off, and there. So now, so that looks a little better. If you notice that get a little clipping problems here, but now because we edited it, it edited both of these ones as well. So we're going to take that again, take this and say File, Export 3D Model, and we'll go right into there again. And by the way, my options are, I don't need the textures. I'm going to leave these as default, really, except I'm using the current selection, and say Export. Replace it. It'll do that. Okay, good. And now we go back in here, say New, don't save. Let's go right into Voxel Sculpting right here and open that file. And again, we're at 92,000, so let's just increase resolution to 5 million. Let's add one more, see if we can push it all the way up to 23 million. Wow, that's a lot. Go ahead and hit apply. See how long it takes. I'm going to pause it. It took about 30 seconds. Say yes. I'm going to go to this, hit the T button for transform so I can see it. Let's move on up on it and take a look and see if it's going to work. Now, okay, so now we're starting to see some of the problems I saw before, which is these little stringy things coming out. You can see that's kind of a big deal, right? It's kind of a big problem. The rest of it looks actually pretty surprising. And I can go in and I can just erase those. There's not a whole lot of them, so I can probably get them fairly easily. And we might just do that. I can also, but you can see that even then, this area down here just did not play out very well at all. And that's because, notice that this is really dragging, it's getting the data from that and pulling it across. So we really need to create separate instances. So let's talk a little bit about how that typically works. Okay, so let's talk a little more about this. One thing I'd like to tell you right off the bat is that sometimes these circles, these kind of cylindrical surfaces with holes in them like that, it's best to triangulate. In fact, I like to triangulate all the models. So let me show you an example of some triangulation. Let's go into this boat right here. Okay, and you can see these are all components. If I click on this, select it all, I go to TIG's Triangulate Faces in Selection. So I'll hit this, and I'll wait 1000, 1000. I'll give you a chance to see how long this takes. Oops, it's okay. Got through. It took about 10 or 15 seconds. That's too long, and I'm going to undo that. And on the bigger, more complicated things, it'll take up to 3 or 4 minutes. But if I double click on this, I use Sketch UV. I click here, right click on and hit Triangulate. bam, it happens almost instantly. So that's how I like to triangulate my models, and it's a good idea to triangulate them. So once I've done with the triangulation, then I'm trying to optimize them. So I'm going to go in and say solids triangles. This is the so here's the object with the same object, but it's just everything's been triangulated. You can kind of tell that. And then once we've done that, by the way, these are all they need to be all right. These have to be all solids. I use Solid Inspector, and it'll tell you. So that's a surface. So the way this works is close this, double click on here, and you'll see we have an opening right there. And if I double click on this and click on Surface Inspector, it'll highlight in red. I don't know if you can tell, but that's what that is right there. So that's good. So that's go in here and say line up, draw that into there, and then it's probably one. No, we're all good. So everything's good. Oh, this is a component. So okay, so that's done. So now we have that done. There's some other things that we're going to want to do in here as well. But once these are all solids, then we need to basically once they're all solids, then we're ready to. This is a good model that can be 3D printed, right? So now I want to set it up for voxelization, which is a little bit different. So I'm going to go into the voxel. I'll save this out, and I'm going to go to open. This is the voxel. This is the solids triangle, solids collapse for voxel. That's it right there. Okay, so you see that this is pretty much the same model, except there's some things that have been collapsed. Like for instance, I'll go into here, and I'll click on this, and you can look at whoops, like these models. You can see that they actually are perfect solids. So, but they're not actually, even though they're solids, they're not put into here. So what I want to do is take this, and I'm going to use bool tools. Always save before using booleans, but I'll click this union one, click here and here, and then I'll click here and here. And the reason I'm doing that is going to give me a chance to independently adjust these inside of 3D code. So what I'm trying to do is make sure that I don't have any small little objects. Like I don't know if yeah, see this one right here. So I go into this object here, and so all these, I'll cut these right here. Okay, paste them, and take these and cut these, and that's already anything that's not. Oops. I just want to make sure that when I double click on it, it gets everything. So it only gets those. So this one needs to be grouped, and this one, actually I can just basically take select all and say intersect faces with selection. Now I should have that gets them all. Good. And then let's go into here, paste those other two in. If I select them all, so I'm not getting them all, so if I select all, intersect faces with selection, now I get them all. So that's going to make it easy for me to topologize these easier in 3D code. So good. Now I've got that done. Shows you some examples of just how that works. I'm going to bring this in 2 different levels just to show that you can do that. So I'm going to take first. I'll save this file. Save. This is the collapse for voxel. Then I'm going to go over my layers here, and I'm going to select on each layer, and I'm going to collapse them all so that I don't have any layers. So as you can see, these are some pictures of the actual cannon that I use. So I'm going to delete these two. Delete that, delete that, delete that, delete these. So I'm deleting everything that I can. Delete that, delete that. Okay, so now we're pretty good. I'll go into this. So it looks like that's all one object. Good. Okay. And I think we're let's go down here. No, so this needs to be all I don't know if that's going to make it all one object. Yeah, so we can take this, select all, and say intersect faces with selection. Get that again. And so now, oops. Okay, I think we're actually pretty good now. So now that we have these broken out into their different groups, I'm gonna basically go ahead and export it. So I've got rid of, oh, actually before I do that, let me make sure I get rid of all these components, right? So if I look at this and, oh, there's a component. No, actually the components are gonna be fine. I just want to, yeah, they should be fine. So we'll just leave those the way they were. In fact, we kind of want components because if we don't have separate components, they're actually going to bleed into each other. So that's really kind of good. Although I might ungroup those and ungroup those so that we have, we have those broken down. So it's kind of at a one level component. So now that's done, let's select all and export to the 3D model. Actually, we're gonna do it in two phases. I'm gonna hold the shift key down and get rid of that one. So I just want to show you that file. Export 3D model. And I want to go, this is one. And then let's go ahead and get the Canon barrel itself as a second one to export. The reason why I'm doing this is so that I can show how you can actually export multiple objects into 3D code and edit them there. So now that that's done, let's go ahead and jump into 3D code and let's go into Voxel Sculpting, and we'll go in here and we'll go ahead and grab one. So the key here is that we're going to end up importing these as separate surface objects, right? So what I'll do is I don't want to hit anything here. Just I'm going to use import without voxelization, right? Make sure my position is set at 0, 0. Reset the axis if I have to. And let's not scale anything. I think we're in pretty good shape there. And we'll hit this little button over here, that the V, to turn it to surface mode. And then we just hit the apply button, right? So we're going to hit apply, and we want to keep this right. And then so if I look at this, you'll see it's not too good. But if I look in the wireframe mode, you'll see that it's all there, right? So it's all there, but it doesn't look that great right now. But that's okay. We're going to fix that. So then I'm going to go from here. I'm going to say File, and I'm going to import object, and I'm going to go to that barrel, right? Notice it came right in because we're still set up. Now if I say reset axis now, it's going to move it, right? So I don't want to do that. I want to try and keep that hit undo, keep that where it was. So I'm not sure exactly why that is. I've got to figure that particular part out, but it did come in exactly where we wanted it, so that's pretty good. So let me go ahead and hit apply on this because again we got another surface. Okay, and now I can hit the T button, and now we're ready to go ahead and start building our voxels. So I'm still in surface mode. The reason why surface mode is kind of good at this point is that we can do a lot of interesting things in surface mode. But first thing, I'm going to hold my mouse over this. I hit the H key. That's going to show me that's the mesh. That's the Canon mesh, right? So if I hit the enter button, it's going to give me required Voxel Polycount. So let's excuse me, let's put 1,000,000. I'm going to copy that so I don't have to keep pasting that. And now you can see that we've got quite a bit more resolution on that than we had before. Okay, so go over to here, and these H key again. This is the sideboard, the carriage, and you see if I do the default 20,000, see how soft it is? That's no good. I want to make it something like maybe 200,000. Let's try that. That's better. So you can see that actually did pretty good. So I'm going to use 200,000 for all of these. So again, H key, return 200. Okay, and what I'm going to do now is I'm going to look at some of these smaller ones, like this one. If I hit the H key for this thing and hit return 20,000, 20,000 is probably pretty good for some of these. So H, that'll go ahead and voxelize those fairly quickly. So now I'm going to pause it, and I'll come back after I've finished voxelizing all this. Still finishing this up, and oops, and notice that when I put my cursor over this, I hit the H key, selects it. If it's only 20,000 polygons, it's really kind of fast to go in there. If you want to change the pivot on here, of course, you just point to something. If I want to pivot around here, I just point to that, hit the F key, and now that's where I'm pivoting around. So and let's go hit the H key, 2 enter keys. As long as we're in surface mode, it'll do that. So I'll pause and get back when we're done here. So I think I'm done. And if I want to actually look at this and tell, I can just go up in here and start clicking on these little. That 0.2 is probably not a very good resolution. So find out where that is. That's selected it somewhere in here. If I hit the enter key, it'll tell me I've only got 20,000 polygons. Oh, that's probably all right. Oh, that's not what I want. That's what it is. It's this thing up here. So if I hit the H key again, hit return. So it's the metal rim across the top. 200. Let's do 200,000. Let's see what happens when we do that. So again, as we do this, as we move down, we're looking for these this little mesh. See, it's got nothing in it. So I know that's. Where is that? That is, as we move around, that's this thing right here, that little dot. So evidently I didn't get that. So we'll hit 20,000. We didn't get that one melded in, but that's right. Notice it says 100. That's because we really jacked it up. So if I hit it, let's make it instead of 32,000, let's make it 10. That's 58. It's still kind of high. You can downsample. You really don't want to be upsampling too much. So let's go 5,000. That's 41. Okay, that's not too bad. We'll just leave that. Kind of try and keep these numbers the same. So as I go through, here's a 3x. So 3x is, I'm not sure what I'm looking at there. So let's see. Oh, that's that. Okay, so that's okay. So let's see. Here's this one. So this is, I'm not sure what I'm looking at here, but oh, it's the other side. That's what we're looking at. The F key again, turn it around. There it is. Enter 20,000. Okay. So what I'm trying to show is just that there's a lot of times when you think you're done, you're not. And the way to do this is you go through this list. Here's this one, this mesh. Let's go back to the default. So really what we're going to do is I save this file, and now we want to get a low, we want to actually probably rough it up a little bit so we can put some stuff on it to make it look like it needs to be roughed up. So let me talk about that a little bit. First off is I can take something like a, let's look at a draw, and as you can see, I can draw stuff directly on here. I can go over here to the brush, with brushes, and choose kind of a pointed one, and that's a pointed drawing. Or I can come in and say invert the tool, and now I'm cutting into it. Of course, you know, we use the right mouse button to change. Right mouse button, left to right changes the size. Up and down, it changes the how deep it goes. So as this, so I can come in here and just kind of take some chunks out of things easily. But really, since I'm in the surface mode, what I may rather do is go into live clay, right? And so in live clay, if I go into this W button, we'll see that if I want to, I can actually, let's go into, so if I adjust the size of that, I'm getting a tinier little burn in there, and then I can basically, now I can go in with, you know, the tool, and I can actually invert it, and now I can carve stuff out in here. And let's turn off the wireframe. You can see what's going on. So because that's been, you know, this tool actually, the tinier you make it, let's go to this crack tool. Let's move it up. Here we go. So because of this stuff, this is a really great way to get super detail, you know, into your maps. So that's what I'm doing here. So the way you typically do this is you start off and you get a little bit rough first. You know, you get rough on the surface first, that is, and move it down. I'm gonna go ahead and start messing with this, and I'll get back to you when we're done. So as I go through this, I'll kind of start off a little coarser stuff first, and I'll add the stuff later. So the finer detail later. And as I move around, right, so I hit the H key, and that'll give me, that just basically allows me to, when I hit the H key, to choose whatever object I want to be working on, right? So I just hit the H key while it's over an object. If I want to, I can also raise it a little bit, hit the H key, and then I can hold the Shift key down, and it'll actually smooth it a little bit, right? So I can use that to smooth. I'm trying to get, you know, trying to smooth some areas over. There's a big dent right there, obviously. More denting. So we're just trying to really distress this up. So a couple things I ought to mention, and that is, again, H key, remember, selects, but I'm using this invert button over here. And if I get a hole, and I also set up this fall off to 100%, but if I hold the Shift key down, I can actually smooth out stuff. So even while my brush is set, I like clay. Clay is a pretty good tool for actually cutting into stuff a little better. It's a little better than draw. Draw kind of tries to keep some of the geometry. So I like clay. So that's just a couple things to keep in mind. One of the things to remember is that if you hold the Shift key down and you drag in these empty spaces, you can actually change the lighting. So if you're working in a dark area like this and you really can't see what you're doing, you just hold the Shift key down, come up, and then you can hit the H key to select it, and then you can start, you know, adding more details, right? So another good tip is that Control Shift S will save incrementally. So that's a good idea to just get that on your keyboard shortcut. Okay, now we've gone ahead and created all those objects and tweaked all the objects in 3D Coat. And now I want to actually go through a workflow where we just take one object into 3D Coat. So in this case, I'm going to take and I'm going to move this just this barrel into 3D code. So I'll just go into File, Export 3D Model, and I've already got these set up, but I'm going to call this Test B, and it's going to export as Test B, and we'll go into 3D code here. And the first thing I want to do is I want to open it up and UV map it. So I go to Test B. Okay, I want to make sure no center snap is set because I don't want to snap to the center. And the texture size doesn't really matter because we're going to be texturing in substance. So I'll say OK. See, that's way up here. So if I look at my UV map, you'll see there it is. Looks pretty good, and automatically mapped it. So now I'm going to say Export Objects and Textures. I use a none, so because I don't want any textures. And I'm going to go right into here and say Test B, and then I'll put a hyphen and UV for that. Say save it. That's all you do. Say OK. So now we have the UV model. Now we next need to go into do a new, and don't save this, and we'll go into Voxel Sculpting. So and I can take that same one we had, and remember we're going to import without voxelation, and we want the position to be 0, and we hit apply and keep that, and then we hit oops, let's see, is that going to work right? Let me see. I don't think that's going to work. Let's see if that works. Let's see. I want this to be about what, 500,000. Okay, yeah, so that's gonna work fine. Okay, so I can just take that. Okay, so I didn't have to change that to S. I thought I did, but I don't need to. Now, the problem is, as you can see, I got all these areas right here. So there's a couple ways I can deal with that. One way is just to basically go to the smooth control and make sure that my fall off's at 0, and I can just, as you can see, I can pretty much just smooth them out like this, and that's probably what I'll do. Let me go ahead and hit the pause button. I could also do a smooth, undo this. I could also say under geometry, smooth all, and that's going to be, I can do that a couple times. Yeah, we'll do that. So we'll just, that kind of gets rid of it, but I still have to kind of go in and do this. So I'm going to pause it. Okay, now we're back, and I've smoothed some of it. The textures are probably going to take care of most of that smoothing artifacting, so it's not a big deal. So then I'm going to go into my live clay here. Before I do that, let me go ahead and I want to compress these. So I'll go in here. These of course, hit the H key, select that. These of course have not been voxelized, so hit 20 for that, and then we'll go to this one and we hit 20 for that. Then I can take this volume up here and I can say merge subtree with booleans. I can try with booleans, but usually it doesn't work, so I just say no booleans. And now, oops, yeah, so we basically got all that cut out, so that's not going to work. I think that's because we modified this. So let's go back in. I want to go back in and redo this, and I'll be right back. Well, first let me show you what I need to do. First, I'll say new, don't save, Voxel Sculpting, there we are. So I'll take that, and I want to set the surface right there, and I'm going to say these are all 0, and hit apply. Okay, and then select this one, and zoom up to it, and there we have it. So if I hit return, I think I want this to be somewhere around like 500,000. Okay, and then I can hit this one and 20,000, this one and 20,000. So once I've got these done, now's the time for me to actually go in here and say merge subtree, no booleans. And now, so now I got it. Now we're good. Now I can go back and do my smoothing like we talked about, geometry, smooth all. I want to Let's do it one more time. That's pretty good. I'm gonna just leave it like that. Okay, so now I want to add some. I'm gonna add some detail to it, and I'm gonna do it using the live clay. So I'll say live clay, and I'm gonna invert the tool. I'm gonna choose this particular alpha, and let's see if so you can see it's cutting. Yeah, it's cutting. Okay, so it's pretty good to use this color, because if you don't use this color, you're not going to see the textures anywhere else. So I'm gonna just go ahead and try and give me some cracks, and get an idea that. Okay, now we're done. So once we've got this, let's go ahead and save it. Call it test B. Test B, and there it is. And now I want to go on to my geometry and say, let's decimate it. This is a pretty good decimation tool. So that's about we're at 2 million right now. We'll decimate at 50% to 1 million. That sounds good. Take a look and see what happens after we decimate it. See what it looks like. It looks pretty good. Can barely tell any difference. Yep. Okay, so I'm going to save this out. File, export, object, and this is going to be test B, and this is test B, high poly. Okay, I'll save that. And we don't want to reduce it any. And there we go. And that reduction, I think, is different from the decimation reduction. I think the decimation reduction is better there. So let's go ahead now and let's launch Substance real quick. And we'll basically use Substance to bake down this barrel texture, and then add some other textures to it. So here we go. Okay, so we close this. We say File, New, and we want to get our test B UV object. So that's good. So there it is. And now we want to bake textures, and so we want to choose our high poly one. The ID, I don't think we don't need the ID right now. And we want to go here and say, let's bake it to 2048. And let's make it about 0.25, 0.25. Something like this would be about right. And say, bake it. This will take a few seconds, and what we're doing is we're taking that high quality, that mesh that we just added all that texture to, and we're baking that back down onto this particular object right now. So here we go. We'll see how that goes. See if that's right. I might have tried it at 512 just to make sure, but I think that this should work. So okay, so let's look at this, and you can see it's got damage, and it's smoothed out quite a bit, and we don't see much in the way of. So now I'll take that, and I'm going to go down to Smart Materials, and I'm going to look for this iron old, drag it up into here, and look at that. So that's got those little scratches and everything in it. Plus we've got and some divots out of it, like up at the top here and everything. So now that we've got this done, the goal is now just to say File, Export Textures, right? So I go in here, and I'm going to use, let's see, let's find a folder to go to. We'll go to Unity, T, Assets, Canon. I'm going to do new folder, test 2. Okay. And select that folder, and then I want to say, let's use under the configs, let's use Unity 5 Standard Metallic. And once we're done, we just say export. Okay, open the folder, and here's the files that we exported. There's only 3 of them. It's very small. So let's go ahead now and go into Unity. Okay, there we are. So let me scale this so we can see it a little better. There we go. So here's test 2. Now I need to go and I need to grab my test UV object in here. So I'm going to copy it and paste it into that folder. And if I paste, you'll see it show up here. There it is. And we'll look at the let's look at that model, and let's say we want to basically generate light maps, and I want to make it scale factor 0.0254. So that's going back from inches to into the metric. And I'll scroll down and say apply. Okay. And now I just take this same model, I'll drag it into our hierarchy, and there it is. Pretty cool. Now I'll come in here, say create a material, and I'm going to call this barrel mat. Okay, so we'll call it a barrel material, and I'll drag it on there so it's on there. The other thing I want to do is I want to look at this. I'm going to look at some of these. So this one is a texture type as default, so I need to make that a normal map. I got it right, so that's good. And I can also basically in here I can override, I can default the resolution. So it's right now it's at 2048. I'm gonna fix that here a second. But first let's go ahead into this material, barrel map material. I'll take this normal and put it right there. You can see now we've added that kind of roughness. You can see. I'm gonna take that. I'm going to take that barrel map and put it on the handles too. There's one there and one there. Okay, and then I'm going to go ahead and on the albedo, this has the transparency and the albedo. So I'm going to put that up in there, and there's that. And then I'm going to take the metallic smoothness of it and take that and put that up in here. And so there we have. So now we have a really nice barrel. The problem is the barrel is actually, it's a bronze barrel, not a, so I added a little color there, jack back to the smoothest, because if you can see, it's just not too smooth. You know, it's been out and weathered and all that. So hopefully that makes sense. It's a pretty laborious workflow. Just to re-go over it, what we did is we took SketchUp model, exported it as an OBJ, added UV maps in 3D code, and then we voxelized it in 3D code and added more textures and smoothed it out some and created more of a little more scratches and some of the dings, as you can kind of see on the edges right here. You can see these little dings in here and everywhere. And then we and then baked it down in Substance Designer on the UV mapped mesh. And then after that, we ended up exporting all the textures and then basically applying back on the UV mesh here in Unity. So hope that works. Thanks for watching. Bye.